Welcome to India's best kept secret.
Very good morning. We are live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Coming up in the next hour, US President Joe Biden speaks to leaders of Israel, Egypt and Qatar in wake of Hamas hostages deal. IDF chief warns Israel-Gaza conflict will continue for months. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov to hold bilateral talks in Moscow today. External Affairs Minister holds productive meetings with Russia's Deputy PM, affirms bilateral cooperation. Sweden edges closer to NATO after vote in Turkish Parliamentary Commission. Vote expected to be held within weeks in Parliament General Assembly. And KL Rahul's gritty knock helps India cross 200, but South Africa still on top after day one of the Centurion Test. US President Joe Biden spoke to Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the leaders of Qatar and Egypt on Wednesday in the aftermath of a deal to secure the release of dozens of hostages held by Hamas. The White House in a statement said President Biden emphasized the critical need to protect the civilian population, including those supporting the humanitarian aid operation, and the importance of allowing civilians to move safely away from areas of ongoing fighting. Adding the leaders discussed the importance of securing the release of all remaining hostages. Biden is vacationing with his family on the Massachusetts island of Nantucket for Thanksgiving. The White House said summaries of the calls would be released later. President Biden also spoke to Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Qatari Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. The White House said Biden and Qatari Emir Sheikh discussed the need to release hostages held in Gaza and efforts to boost humanitarian aid. Qatar and Egypt were mediators between Israel and Hamas in the late November truce. Current diplomatic efforts on a new truce have yielded little public progress so far. And the Israel-Hamas conflict in Gaza will likely go on for many months, the country's military chief Herzi Halevi said. Israel has vowed to annihilate Hamas after its fighters infiltrated Israel border towns, killing 1,200 people and took about 240 hostages back to Gaza. The Israeli forces are continuing their offensive against Hamas, deploying multiple methods and strategies.
There are no magic solutions. There are no shortcuts in dismantling a terrorist organization. Only determined and persistent fighting will work, and we are very, very determined. We will reach Hamas's leadership too, whether it takes a week or if it takes months.
Israel's chief military spokesperson Daniel Hagari also said that the attacks on ships which have no Israeli links in Red Sea area is an act of Iranian terrorism carried out by the Houthis. Hagari's statement comes after Israel's announcement of an intercepting a hostile aerial target by an Israeli fighter jet over the Red Sea area, which was en route to Israeli territory.
Today, an Israeli fighter jet intercepted a hostile aerial target in the Red Sea area, which was en route to Israeli territory. It did not cross into Israeli territory. The Houthi fire towards Israeli territory is an act of terrorism. It is an act directed by Iran and by means of Iranian intelligence and weapons. These hostile acts are not directed only at Israel. The attacks at sea on ships which have no Israeli link is an act of Iranian terrorism carried out by the Houthis, and this is a global problem.
And White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and Israel Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer discussed planning for the day after the Israel-Hamas conflict, including governance and security in Gaza. A White House official says Sullivan and Dermer also discussed efforts to bring home the remaining hostages and a transition to a different phase to maximize focus on high-value Hamas targets when they met on Tuesday. And the United Nations has assigned Sigrid Kaag as the humanitarian coordinator. Her appointment follows last week's UN Security Council resolution calling for more aid to enter the Palestinian enclave. DD India's William Denslow reports from New York, where the UN is headquartered.
As well as serving as Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister in the Netherlands, Sigrid Kaag has also performed a number of UN duties in the past, including Special Coordinator for Lebanon. Now, as of January 8th, she'll be taking on a new UN role, which is Humanitarian Relief Coordinator in Gaza. The United Nations describes her responsibilities, including her work to facilitate, coordinate, monitor and verify humanitarian relief consignments for Gaza. This is part of a UN Security Council resolution that was passed last week that calls for the urgent steps to be taken to immediately allow the safe, unhindered and expanded humanitarian access in Gaza. The resolution took days of diplomatic wranglings for Council members to find enough consensus to pass it. But critics say it's been watered down and diluted too much, no longer calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. UN aid agencies warn that the healthcare system in Gaza is on the brink of collapse, and other aid officials on the ground warn that a quarter of the population in the Palestinian enclave are facing catastrophic levels of hunger. Recently, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres says that a ceasefire is the only way to end the nightmare people in Gaza are currently going through. William Denslow in New York, reporting for DD India.
Meanwhile, Israeli agency has reported that on Tuesday, 83 humanitarian aid trucks and 7 ambulances were inspected at the Nitzana checkpoint and transferred to Gaza via the Rafah crossing from Egypt. At the request of the UN, the Kerem Shalom border crossing was closed for inspection of aid trucks due to logistic constraints on the Gazan side of the crossing. Earlier, Israeli agency Cognitive Abilities Test reported that 218 trucks loaded with humanitarian aid for the people of Gaza were inspected and transferred to the Gaza Strip on Monday. And Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi militia claimed responsibility for a missile attack on Tuesday on a container ship in the Red Sea and for an attempt to attack Israel with drones. MSC Mediterranean Shipping said there were no injuries to its crew from the attack on its ship. The United aid en route from Saudi Arabia to Pakistan. The ship had informed a nearby coalition naval warship about the attack and had taken evasive maneuvers. Meanwhile, Israel mentioned that its aircraft had intercepted a hostile aerial target in the Red Sea area. In a televised address, Houthi military spokesperson Yahya Saria said that the group had targeted the vessel, which he identified as the MSC United, after the crew failed to respond to warnings, adding that they had carried out a military operation targeting Eilat and other areas in Israel, terming them as occupied Palestine. And in a rare find, IDF reserve soldiers demonstrating vigilance and civic responsibility unearthed a well-preserved 1500-year-old Byzantine lamp near Gaza during the conflict with Hamas. Recognizing the unique discovery, the soldiers handed it to an Israel Antiquities Authority archaeologist. The IAA confirmed the artifact as a sandal candle from the Byzantine period, likely dating back to the 5th or 6th century CE. A Ukrainian attack on the Crimean port of Feodosia damaged a large Russian landing ship, killing 1 person and injuring 2 others. The footage showed the moment of the large explosion at the Crimean port of Feodosia on Tuesday as thick plumes of smoke rose. Moscow confirmed the number of casualties and damage on Tuesday after Kiev said it had destroyed an important Russian warship. Ukraine says at least 1 policeman has been killed and 4 others injured in a Russian attack on a railway station in the southern Ukrainian city of Kherson on Tuesday. About 140 civilians had been at the station in the early evening, and quick action by police to direct them away saved many lives, according to Ukraine Interior Minister Ihor Klimenko. Ukrainian Railways said evacuees were taken from the station by bus northwest to the town of Mykolaiv. Delayed trains were rescheduled. And in a nightly video address on Tuesday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russian forces had shelled the railway station in the southern city of Kherson, with the number of casualties still to be determined.
There was a Russian strike on the Kherson railway station. There was an evacuation train. All services are now on site. The number of dead and injured is being established. There were many civilians there.
Ukrainian Army Chief General Valery Zaluzhny said on Tuesday that he was not satisfied with the work of military draft officers that are responsible for mobilizing troops to keep up the war effort against the Russian forces. Zaluzhny made the comments at a press conference in Kiev a day after Ukraine's parliament published a text of a draft law containing reforms to the army draft program, including lowering the age of men who can be mobilized to 25 from 27.
As for the local draft offices as of now, frankly speaking, I am not currently satisfied with the work of the draft offices. If I were satisfied with their work, we would not discuss this bill right now.
And thousands gathered in front of the Central Election Commission building in Belgrade on Tuesday to protest over the recent election results. The opposition Serbia Against Violence Alliance, which placed second in a general election early this month, has accused the ruling Serbian Progressive Party of widespread vote fraud. Serbia Against Violence has been organizing daily protests over the results in front of the Election Commission. On Sunday evening, the protests turned violent and 38 people were detained by the police. This happened after an international monitoring mission last week accused the ruling party of an unfair advantage through media bias, the improper influence of President Alexander Vučić, and voting irregularities. Marinika Tepic, a leading figure in Serbia's main opposition party, vowed on Tuesday to continue on with the hunger strike to protest against election fraud despite a deterioration in her health after 9 days without food. She was placed on twice daily intravenous drips following a deterioration in her health on Monday. Tepic accused authorities of including dead people on voter list and importing voters from Bosnia and Kosovo. All right, we'll slip into a very short break, but still to come on DD India News Hour. South Korea imposes sanctions on North Koreans linked to nuclear and missile development. We'll give you an update on the Congo elections, where a group of opposition candidates called for a protest to denounce the vote. An update on Australian weather, where severe thunderstorms have hit the area, causing widespread disruption.
Welcome to Lakshadweep, the land of 100,000 islands, the aquatic wonderland of India. An archipelago of spectacular marine gems, colorful coral and crystal clear lagoons. A kaleidoscope of turquoise blue. Each island of Lakshadweep draws in explorers with its unique beauty. Witness idyllic sunsets and pristine beaches of Kavarati. The majestic lighthouse and colorful boat races at Minikoi. Experience water sports in the shallow lagoons of Kadmat. Unwind in the serene setting of Bangaram. Lakshadweep offers a precious heritage of ecology and culture, with rhythmic beats of folk dances echoing through these islands, delighting visitors in traditional folk dances and local artworks, with abundant marine life and mineral resources. The islands are advancing towards a greener, brighter future. Lakshadweep is set to amaze visitors with its breathtaking wonders and picturesque seascapes. In and the enduring spirit of incredible India.
India's huge leaps towards becoming self-reliant in defense sector. Policy changes enabling increased involvement of private sector. From humanitarian assistance to rescue operations. Increased synergy among armed forces through joint military exercises. Watch Echoes 2023, India's Defenders at these times only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. South Korea imposed sanctions on 8 North Koreans linked to nuclear and missile development through arms trade, cyber attacks and other illicit activities. Seoul's foreign ministry said the sanctions came days after North Korea fired a new intercontinental ballistic missile, which South Korea and the United States strongly condemned as a grave violation of UN Security Council resolutions. The newly blacklisted people include Ri Chang-ho, head of the Reconnaissance General Bureau involved in overseas hacking operations, and Yoon Chol, who helped supply nuclear materials while working at the North Korean embassy in China. Amid a prolonged stalemate at the UN, Seoul has slapped sanctions against Pyongyang independently or together with Washington and Tokyo, seeking to squeeze its funding sources. And Japan's Nuclear Regulation Authority on Wednesday decided to lift its de facto ban on operations at Tokyo Electric Power Company Holdings' Kashiwazaki Kariwa nuclear power plant as early as December 27th. The nuclear watchdog determined that it now has enough information to decide to lift the ban at the plant in Niigata Prefecture, central Japan, following additional inspections and meetings with TEPCO, which is Tokyo Electric Power Company. President Tomoaki Kobayakawa, the NRA, instructed its secretariat to start procedures for lifting the ban imposed for a series of flaws in the plant's anti-terrorism measures. All right, let's go across to Singapore now, where DD India's Patrick Falk is joining us live for more information. Good morning, Patrick. Tell us what made Japan's nuclear regulator determine that it was safe to lift the ban on Kashiwazaki Kariwa plant.
Good morning to you. Well, you know, as recently as May, Japan's Nuclear Regulation Authority had decided against lifting this de facto ban. It's actually a ban on the movement of fuel because of various concerns which included concerns about anti-terrorism measures and measures to prevent unauthorized access to restricted areas. But those concerns appear to have been addressed now, and as you say, there have been a series of inspections since then. There have also been a series of meetings with Tokyo Electric Power's president. So this decision to lift the ban as early as today paves the way for operations to restart and for the plant to get back online. And this is important not just for TEPCO, but also for Japanese households and consumers because of rising energy inflation. It was in June, as a matter of fact, that TEPCO applied for and was granted permission to raise energy tariffs by 14%. But this restarting of the nuclear plant will mean that it can rely less on more expensive thermal energy. So it's important, as I say, for Japanese households and also for Japan's efforts towards decarbonisation.
All right, you're saying it paves the way for restarting the nuclear plant, but what is the biggest challenge for its operators?
Yeah, that's important as well. I mean, TEPCO's not actually restarting the plant right away. Apart from anything else, it still needs to apply for permission from local government authorities as well. In addition to that, TEPCO's president said, you know, this is really a matter of building trust among the people, and there has been a big emphasis not just on addressing those security measures, but also on convincing the public that, you know, there are constant improvements to security measures being made as well, and to continually build confidence. Importantly, the Kashiwazaki Kariwa plant was not impacted by the 2011 Fukushima disaster, but it was closed in the aftermath of that, along with all nuclear plants in Japan. It was impacted in 2007, as a matter of fact, by an earthquake which caused damage to the plant. So this is part of a long process, if you like, towards Japan restarting nuclear energy operations.
All right, Patrick, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for getting us the latest from Singapore. A group of opposition candidates in the Democratic Republic of Congo have rejected the outcome of last week's elections and called for a protest to denounce the vote. Partial results released on Monday showed the incumbent President Felix Tshisekedi with a clear lead. The elections in the Central African country were marred by widespread irregularities last Wednesday. DD India correspondent Chris Okamringa has more from Kinshasa.
5 opposition candidates in the Democratic Republic of Congo's presidential elections called for the protest in the capital, Kinshasa. They want the elections cancelled and a rerun organized by a new team of electoral officials. The DRC government has not granted the opposition candidates permission to hold the protest, but they said it's within their constitutional right. The candidates include leading opposition figures like Martin Fayulu and Denis Mukwege. They described last Wednesday's elections as a sham. The vote was marred by delays, faulty machines, and missing names on the voters' list. Authorities had to extend the voting process to Thursday. The DRC's Electoral Commission has released partial results showing the incumbent President Felix Tshisekedi with a clear lead. Vote counting continues across the vast Central African country. Nearly 44 million people were registered to vote in this year's elections that are being held amidst armed conflict in the east of the country. The electoral body is expected to release the full provisional results on December 31st. Chris Ochamringa in Kinshasa for DD India.
Kenyan digital rights campaigners warn of a phone tracking program that could lead to increased state surveillance and invasion of privacy that the government was pressing ahead with to trace counterfeit devices and curb fraud. Kenya's Ministry of Information Communication and the Digital Economy, Eliud Owalo, said that the government intends to go ahead with plans to roll out a device management system to allow authorities to access the unique identification number of mobile phones and block services to fake devices. But campaigners argue the technology will violate users' privacy rights, while authorities claim that the technology violated citizens' privacy were misinformation. And chasing their dreams of starting a new life and meeting their loved ones in the United States, the migrant caravan set off on Christmas Day, walked to the southern Mexican town of Villa Comaltlan on Tuesday. Mexican National Guard monitored migrants from Honduras and other Latin American and Caribbean countries, stopping occasionally for rest and prayer. The local authorities estimated that the average number of people per day was around 8,000. Top U.S. officials are set to visit Mexico on Wednesday to assist the U.S. in managing a record number of people attempting to cross the border. The Turkish Parliament's Foreign Affairs Commission approved Sweden's NATO membership bid on Tuesday in a key step towards enlarging the Western Bloc. And this comes after 19 months of delay where Ankara had demanded security-related concessions from Stockholm. The commission, controlled by President Erdogan's ruling party, voted to back the Swedish bid after long hours of debate. The bid had been earlier voted on November but got postponed due to some issues. This will again be put to vote in the Parliament General Assembly, where Erdogan's party also holds a majority and expected to pass through. This will take time. In a statement following the approval, Swedish Foreign Minister Tobias Billström said Sweden welcomed the move and looked forward to joining NATO. Boris Rook, NATO Assistant Secretary General for Political Affairs and Security Policy, said that the Commission's approval was excellent news. Australian police have confirmed the deaths of at least 6 people and 3 others missing following severe thunderstorms in the eastern states of Australia. The storms caused flooding, high winds and torrential rains, with rivers flooded and trees downed. The Bureau of Meteorology has minor flood warnings in place, and Energix, the state-owned electricity company in Queensland, reported that around 86,000 households remained without power. The storms follow the flooding caused by former tropical cyclone Jasper earlier this month. A severe winter storm is battering the northern plains and upper Midwest regions of the U.S., causing travel chaos and power outages for millions of people. The National Weather Service has issued a warning that blizzard conditions for central South Dakota into parts of Nebraska, Kansas and Colorado, resulting in difficult to near impossible travel in the aftermath of Christmas. The storm is expected to dump as much as 13 inches of snow in some areas of South Dakota, along with strong winds of up to 55 miles per hour. The harsh weather could persist until early Wednesday morning, affecting more than 1 million residents and the visitors. At least 22 people died in Kasai Central province of the Democratic Republic of Congo due to landslides caused by torrential rains. The landslide destroyed infrastructure and caused flooding, leaving families homeless. The provincial government plans to investigate the causes of the damages. In December, 14 people died in eastern Congo. Now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. A man in France has been arrested for the murder of his wife and 4 children in a knife attack on Christmas Day. The bodies were found in a bloody apartment in Meaux, northeast of Paris. The mother and 2 daughters were stabbed numerous times, and the younger sons appeared to have been suffocated or drowned. Berlin's 23rd annual Roast Goose Digestion Run saw 200 runners get fit after holiday celebrations. The run, traditionally a 5-kilometer loop, is now a tradition for senior citizens. Co-organizer Wolfgang Page praises the sunny day after heavy rain, wearing a Santa costume and mock goose. Chinese designer Wang Xinjing has developed a humanoid robot named H1 that can walk as fast as a human adult and is powered by AI technology. The robot, which stands 1.8 meters tall and weighs 47 kilograms, has been developed in just half a year. Turkey's Interior Ministry announced that 23 luxury cars confiscated from crime organizations were turned into traffic police vehicles. The vehicles, including Bentley, Porsche and Volvo, were painted white and blue with traffic police written on them. The event, which resumed 3 years after the pandemic, raises elephant awareness. A documentary about King Charles III's coronation year was released on December 26, featuring him interacting with his son and grandchildren at Westminster Abbey and off-duty walking around Balmoral with Queen Camilla. The film Charles III, The Coronation Year, will be screened on BBC One in the UK. Nepal's Soraha hosted the annual Chitwan Elephant Festival, featuring caparism elephants and traditional dancers. The event, which resumed 3 years after the coronavirus pandemic, provides an opportunity to interact with the largest terrestrial mammal and raises awareness about them. Time now for another short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. Indian Prime Minister becomes the first world leader to have 20 million YouTube subscribers. After the recent ambush by the security forces in Jammu and Kashmir, India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh to visit the area to review the security situation. And a thick layer of dense fog engulfs many parts of northern India, bringing visibility to almost zero.
Always welcoming. The vibe of Punjab is larger than life. Warm up to grandeur that's beyond compare. And history that's dotted with tales of bravery. Smiling soul of India, where music, art, cuisine, and culture comes together to create an unforgettable impression. Punjab is all set to win your hearts with its unique and colorful extravaganza.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. And recap of what we have done so far. US President Joe Biden speaks to leaders of Israel, Egypt and Qatar in wake of Hamas hostage deal. IDF chief warns Israel-Gaza conflict will continue for months. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov to hold bilateral talks in Moscow today. External Affairs Minister holds productive meeting with Russia's Deputy PM, affirms bilateral cooperation. Sweden edges closer to NATO after vote in Turkish Parliamentary Commission. Vote expected to be held within weeks in Parliament General Assembly. And KL Rahul's gritty knock helps India cross 200, but South Africa still on top after day one of the Centurion Test. Pakistan's Election Commission has accepted former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's nomination papers for the February 8 general elections despite questions about his eligibility following a lifelong disqualification by the Apex Court. Nawaz Sharif's lawyer Amjad Parvez said no objections have been raised to his candidature and he will contest both from Lahore and Mansahara city of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa now. Parvez added Sharif's disqualification has ended after his acquittal in corruption references against him. Sharif was acquitted in two major corruption cases by the Islamabad High Court. All right, moving on, discussing the forward-looking bilateral partnership agenda for the future. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi had a telephonic conversation with Crown Prince and Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia, Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud. The leaders exchanged views on the current situation in West Asia. They also shared deep concerns at terrorism. Views exchange on the current situation in West Asia, share deep concerns at terrorism, violence and loss of civilian lives. PM Modi reiterates India's long-standing position on the Israel-Palestine issue. And he also calls for humanitarian aid for Israel-Palestine affected population. And both agreed to work together for peace, security and stability in the region. Maritime security and the freedom of navigation on the agenda. We're telling you India's PM Modi, he spoke to his Saudi counterpart. PM Modi conveyed greetings to Saudi Arabia on being selected as host for Expo 2030. And greetings to Saudi for hosting upcoming FIFA Football World Cup 2034. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, who is on a visit to Russia, met Russia's Deputy Prime Minister Denis Manturov in Moscow for a comprehensive and constructive discussion of the two nations' bilateral economic relations. Both the leaders appreciated the greater focus on exploring new opportunities and also noted the significant progress in trade, finance, connectivity, energy, civil aviation and nuclear domains. Both the leaders also witnessed signing of agreements on nuclear power and in areas of medicines, pharmaceutical substances and medical devices. Meanwhile, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will hold talks with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in Moscow on Wednesday. And India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar also visited the Russian Industry and Trade Exhibition with DPM Denis Manturov. Minister highlighted it has an interesting exposition on Russia's contemporary capabilities, holds promise for greater collaboration between the two countries. All right, DD India's Meghna Dev is joining us to tell us more on this. Meghna, good morning. Third day of his visit to Russia, Dr. Jaishankar, he will meet his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in Moscow to discuss various bilateral and global matters. What more do we expect from this meet?
Yes, obviously, we definitely know that the Indian foreign minister has got engagements in Moscow, and then also he has got engagements in St. Petersburg during his about 5-day-long visit to Russia. He will be meeting the Foreign Minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, and he will also be holding meeting with him. There will definitely be talks on different aspects. So first, when we talk about, trade settlement in national currencies, that is something that may be on the agenda, because that is something both the countries are looking out for. Besides that, also when we actually see that there are diverse areas of cooperation, when we're talking about development of hydrocarbons in the Arctic Shelf and Russian Far East. Besides that, we also talk about different sectors of cooperation in terms of energy. We talk about cooperation in terms of culture, trade, economy, and much more. So these subjects will definitely be on the agenda. Besides that, also, if we look at another perspective, there will be discussions on the situation in Ukraine, the situation in Afghanistan, and also the Israel-Hamas conflict. That would be something, because obviously it is one of the major agendas globally now. So that will definitely feature on what talks both the foreign ministers are going to have. Besides that, also there is another important aspect when we see that both the ministers might also talk about their cooperation in the UN, in the SCO, in the G20, as well as when we know that in the coming year Russia has got the presidency of the BRICS. It will be definitely important to also talk about the agenda of the BRICS, the priorities of the BRICS. So these are some of the important features and some of the important things that will be on the agenda: logistics, banking, trade in national currencies, as well as the situation of the political situation globally.
Right, Meghna, a lot on the agenda, but he has been interacting with leading representatives of the Russian strategic community. He also interacted with the Indian community yesterday and visited the Russian industry and trade exhibition. Tell us, how do we see Dr. S. Jaishankar's visit to Russia as far as the bilateral relations between both the countries are concerned?
So, Abhishek, that's very important when we are talking about the relationship between India and Russia, because when we see that both the countries share a special and privileged strategic partnership, and that's what External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, in his address to the Indian community yesterday, also mentioned that this is a very important relationship. We both are major powers. Besides that, he also said a lot on the trade aspect. And when we actually see that this time around, it is expected, the trade between both the countries is expected to cross about $50 billion US, which will set another new milestone in the relationship between both the countries. Besides that, when we see that, in the trade aspect, we saw that he met Denis Manturov, and they saw the exhibition as well, where Russia has been displaying what it has done, its engineers have done in the space of the digital space, as well as what they have done in terms of and how far has Russia come in terms of domestic and the nuclear energy, domestic nuclear energy. We also did see that how External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar did mention to the community that how the relationship is going from strength to strength, and how Russia has been a time-tested partner. He has also, said a lot in terms of how India sees this relationship. And besides that, also when we saw the Intergovernmental Commission meeting that happened with Denis Manturov, There was a lot on the agenda, also in terms of logistics, also in terms of domestic nuclear energy, in terms of trade, commerce, economy. A lot was talked about in this Intergovernmental Commission meeting as well. So we are seeing that this visit is extremely important. We know last year also during the period of November, Dr. Jaishankar visited Russia, and this time around it's again happening after almost a year's gap, and this becomes extremely important because India this year did hold the presidency of the G20 as well, and there had been a lot of discussions on different aspects that also might have featured in the talk. Besides that, also today's meeting, as we were talking about, is extremely important with the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, and that is, and we will definitely be expecting a readout from either sides on the meeting, which will unfold today.
Right, Meghna. Thanks for the detailed information. We'll keep taking updates from you. Moving on to our next story now, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's YouTube channel achieved a significant milestone on Tuesday. Prime Minister Modi's YouTube channel has reached 20 million subscriptions, making it the most subscribed channel among top global leaders. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is the only world leader to have achieved this distinction and leads other global and Indian contemporaries by a huge margin. With a staggering 4.5 billion video views, the Narendra Modi YouTube channel leads the pack in terms of subscribers, video views and quality of videos being posted by political leaders on YouTube. Now let's take a look at other stories making news today. Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh will visit the North Indian Union territory of Jammu and Kashmir today to review the security situation in the Rajouri, Poonch and Pulwama sector after the recent ambush and weapon recovery by the security forces in the area. A thick layer of dense fog engulfs many parts of northern India early on Wednesday. Many parts of the capital city are shrouded in a thick layer of fog. Fire has been burning in the forests of Kullu in India's Himachal Pradesh since Monday. Till now, forest wealth worth crores has been destroyed. Large flames of fire were seen erupting out of the forest area. The performance of 1,282 tabla players simultaneously in the Tal Darbar program organized under the Tansen festival in the music city of India's Madhya Pradesh, Gwalior, has done an unprecedented job of registering its name in the Guinness Book of World Records. Indian PM Narendra Modi congratulated the entire team on social media platform X. Time now for another short break, but still to come on DD India News Hour. Wall Street ends higher in final stretch of 2023. Federal Reserve will begin cutting interest rates soon. With an increase in inflow consecutively for 3 months, foreign direct investment in India jumped to highest in 18 months. And India's KL Rahul holds fort as India crossed 200, but South Africa still on top at stumps on day one.
A confluence of spirituality, knowledge and culture. The progenitor of democracy, Bihar holds a special place in India's history. Treasure the journey of enlightenment. Travel the holy circuit trails of multiple faiths. Experience the legacy of ancient India. And an educational lineage that produced some of the greatest luminaries of the time. Discover a multitude of art and craft forms. savor the true flavors of the land and enjoy the sights and sounds of iconic festivals. Delve deeper into the natural beauty of this land, enriched by the sacred river Ganga. Today, Bihar's infrastructure is at the heart of its transformation. Poised to take a big leap with initiatives in agriculture, education, tourism, and information technology. An ode to a remarkable history. Bihar truly offers a glimpse into a captivating past and vibrant present. Welcome to Bihar.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. US stocks extended their rally on Tuesday, kicking off the final week of 2023 with expectations that the Federal Reserve will begin cutting interest rates as soon as March. All three major US stock indexes rose in light trading. S&P 500 gained 0.42%, touching its highest intraday level since January 2022. Meanwhile, the Nasdaq Composite gained 0.54% and the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 0.43%. All three are on track for monthly, quarterly and annual gains. Now, Apple appealed a ban on Apple Watch imports due to a complaint from medical monitoring technology company Masimo, following a government tribunal decision by President Biden's administration on Tuesday. The tech giant requested the Federal Circuit to halt the ban on Apple's redesigned watches until US Customs and Border Protection decides whether redesigned versions of its watches infringe Masimo's patents. Masimo has accused Apple of hiring away its employees, stealing its pulse oximetry technology and incorporating it into the popular Apple Watch. Foreign direct investment in India jumped 64% in October to 8.4 billion USD, the highest in 18 months. And the latest data released by RBI showed that inflows increased 3 months in a row. Here's the report.
Despite various global challenges, India seems to be the first choice for investors. An increase of 64% has been seen in the foreign direct investment coming into the country in the month of October. Looking at the FDI figures for October, it stood at the level of 8.4 billion US dollars.
भारत के अपने प्रयास हैं, वैश्विक परिदृश्य भी कुछ अनुकूल हुआ है, इन्फ्लेशन कम हुआ है और इंटरेस्ट रेट भी विदेशों में घटा है या बढ़ नहीं रहा है, उसका भी प्रभाव आ रहा है। और भारत ने जिस प्रकार से अपने यहाँ मोदी की गारंटी के तहत कार्यक्रम को बढ़ाया है, प्रगति की है, तो जापान, यूरोप, अमेरिका ये भी अपने इन्वेस्टमेंट को डाइवर्सिफाई कर रहे हो, भारत में भी इन्वेस्टमेंट ला रहे हैं। टेस्ला जैसी कंपनी भी भारत आने को आतुर दिखाई पड़ती है।
According to the data released by the Indian Central Bank, FDI between the month of April and October was 41.5 billion US dollars, which is 6.7% less than last year. According to UN ESCAP report, mega deals were seen in many sectors in India in 2023. This investment took place in the communication, semiconductor, automatic software, biomass sector. NTT, Micron Technology, Hyundai, Suzuki and Microsoft have invested in India. According to the latest report of OECD, global FDI investment in the first 6 months of the year 2023 stood at 727 billion US dollars. And India, America, UK, Brazil are the first choice for investors for FDI investment. According to data by the Indian government, the FDI in the period between 2014 and 2023 has been about 596 billion US dollars, which is about double compared to the period between 2005 and 2014. With inputs from Ajay Mishra, DD India.
All right, time now for some sporting action. All right, we'll start with cricket. India playing South Africa in the first test at Centurion. Team India scored 208 for the loss of 8 wickets after 59 overs on day 1 after the play was called off early due to rain. KL Rahul held the fort from one end to stage India's comeback after Kagiso Rabada punched Indian batters to wrap them on low scores. Virat Kohli and Shreyas Iyer contributed 38 and 31 respectively after Africa struck early before lunch. KL Rahul then took the responsibility upon himself to help India cross 200 and is unbeaten on 70. Shardul Thakur played a cameo of 24. Rabada was the sole destroyer as he took a 5-wicket haul. Nandre Berger took 2 while Marco Jansen took 1 wicket. Earlier, South Africa's captain Temba Bavuma won the toss and put India into bat. The day 2 will start half an hour early to make up for the lost overs on day 1 due to rain. Instead of 1:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time, the day will start at 1 p.m. Indian Standard Time, which is 7:30 GMT. Tennis now. Aryna Sabalenka fought back from a set down to beat Ons Jabeur in an entertaining exhibition match in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday. The Belarusian world number 2 started slowly against Tunisian, who claimed the first set comfortably. However, reigning Australian Open champion Sabalenka found the range with her heavy ground strokes in the second set, eventually running out the winner 4-6, 6-3, 6-2 in a match which lasted nearly 2 hours. On to Saudi Pro League. Cristiano Ronaldo and Sadio Mane netted 2 goals apiece to help Al Nassr to a 5-2 win over Karim Benzema's Al Ittihad as they try to keep pace with Saudi Pro League leaders Al Hilal. Both of Ronaldo's scores came on penalty kicks, the first in 19th minute equalizing at 1-1 and the second gave Al Nassr a 3-2 in the 68th minute. Mane then put the match away for good, netting goals in the 75th and 82nd minute on perfectly timed passes from Brazilians Talisca and then Otavio. Ittihad's Abdulrazak Hamdallah kept his side in the match early with goals in the 14th minute to open the scoring and then in the 51st to take a 2-1 lead. The victory moved second place Nassr to 43 points on the season, just 7 behind Al Hilal. Ittihad sit down in 6th place on 28 points. How 2023 year has been for tennis. Let's talk about that. 15 years after he won his first major title in 2008, Novak Djokovic was easily the story of the tennis year in 2023. Apart from Novak Djokovic, Coco Gauff's maiden major at a home slam to Carlos Alcaraz's stunning Wimbledon win and Iga Swiatek's continued dominance on the women's side, there was no shortage of action in tennis in the year 2023.
Serbian superstar Novak Djokovic turned 36 years young amidst his season to remember but seemed ageless. He matched the all-time Grand Slam record of 24 with a trio of majors this year, with victories at the Australian Open, Roland Garros and US Open across 56 match wins, 7 total titles and a record 8th finish as the year-end world number 1. Carlos Alcaraz finished last season as the youngest world number 1 ever and looked primed to become the one to beat in 2023. But injuries set back his early season campaign before Djokovic halted his much-anticipated effort at Roland Garros, beating the Spaniard in the semi-finals. But it was Wimbledon where Alcaraz came into his own. In just his 3rd career grass court event, Alcaraz rode into the finals, setting up a must-see clash with Djokovic. It was the then 20-year-old who prevailed in 5 dramatic sets. In women's tennis, the 19-year-old American Coco Gauff became the first American teen since Serena Williams to win the US Open crown, some 4 years after her stunning breakthrough at Wimbledon at age 15. Along with Gauff, it was a headline-grabbing year for each of Aryna Sabalenka and Marketa Vondrousova. But Poland's Iga Swiatek rode the roller coaster of being world number 1 for much of the year. Swiatek won her 3rd French Open title, claiming 6 titles overall and ending the season on a high by winning the WTA Finals and reclaiming the top ranking.
Alright, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.